Providers contain reusable logic that other parts of the application can access through dependency injection. This allows objects to interact with one another. What is dependency injection? Let's say class A needs something from class B. For class A to use it, we inject B into A, creating a dependency. Now, let's say animal is injected into dog, and animal has a method like the breathe method. This means that dog now has access to that breathe method, and so other classes, like cat and rabbit, they will also have access to the breathe method. Let's head to the code and create our first provider called service. The first thing you should do is go to the dogs folder and create a service. A service is a provider. To use a provider, you import the class injectable. And now you can create the class. To use the class, we use the same strategy as the controller. We export it, and then in the app.module, but now this time in the providers, we import it. Dogs service. Let's open the controller and put them both side by side. Let's now transfer the logic from the controllers to the service. I can actually just copy this and put it here. It will be called the exact same thing. And now, how do I use this logic here? As you can see when you hover the injectable, it says providers can be injected into other classes via constructor parameters. I can come here and in the constructor, I'll use the service. Dogs service will be dogs service and import it. Now, instead of returning the message here, I will say return this dot dog service dot find all. And I have this missing here, I always forget this. Let me test. If I go to my HTTP request and I do a get dogs, I still get this route returns all dogs. But now it's coming from here. I can say dogs, and here it says dogs. Let's do this for every route. I can copy this and put it here, but we won't give parameters here. In the service, we only do logic, so it will stay like this. Then the create, same thing, we don't give a body, but we still need to import this. The update, where we remove the parameter, and finally a delete. The delete, I can copy this and just say return ID and delete. This one we will not use it anymore, so you can comment. I created this mock database and you can copy this database in the description if you want. We need to create an interface for the dog. For that, go to the folder, new file, interface /dog.interface.ts. This means we will have the dog interface inside the interface folder. You can copy this dog.dto and use it here, but instead of a class, it will be an interface. A dog will always have an ID. This is the only difference from the create dog.dto. We should actually name this dog. When you create a dog, you don't need to give an ID because a database will do that for you. But a dog will still have an ID either way, so the interface is all the fields that the dog should have. We can now annotate this with dog and import it and say it's an array of dogs, and it works. If it doesn't have the ID, it will say property ID is missing because the dog indeed has an ID. We can now do our logic. Our find all, instead of returning this message, it can return the database, this.dogsDB. But the database is not a string, it's once again an array of dog. We now get the error message on the controller saying the same thing. This will be a dog, and you can import it, and an array of dogs. If we now do a request to the get endpoint, we get all the dogs. Let's now do the find one. The find one will have a dog, const dog, which will be a find of the database. So this.dogsdb.find, and we will find a dog where that dog ID is the same as the ID we pass here. But now we have, once again, TypeScript errors, which is good because TypeScript has a purpose. And this will return a dog. And instead of a string, the ID will be a number, so the find works. We can now return the dog. And that's it. This is a find one. Now we use the find one here. This dot dog service dot find one. And we pass the ID. There's one thing missing besides saying that this is a dog. As you can see, type string is not of type number. So you might think, oh, let me say this is a number and I solve this. You can't do this because even if you pass a number in the request, like this, number 1, it will be converted to 1 in a string format. So the way to convert the string into a number is actually say it's a string, but add a plus sign before. And there we go. Now you can say get dogs1 and you will get the ID 1, and get dogs2 and you'll get the ID 2. Let's now do the create. The create is pretty simple. We usually just push the body into the array. But since this is a fake database, we can't do that because the ID will not be automatically generated. We need to add logic for that. Const new ID equals this.dogsDB dot length plus 1. This is the logic, let's say. And now you can say const new dog, and that new dog will have the new ID. So the ID will be the new ID, and it will have all these fields: body.name, body.age. Since we need everything, we can use the spread operator and then body. Now all we need to do is go to the database and push it. New dog, and let's return the dog. Since we are returning the dog, let's change this to dog. Now that the logic is written here, we can use it in the controller. This dot dog service dot create, and we pass the body. This will return a dog. We can now try. I'm going to copy this so I don't have to write everything manually. I don't need to add an ID because we already did the logic. Let's change the name to Tofu, 2 or 1, wherever, and Labrador. And he's true on good boy. Okay, now if I do a post, I get what I sent with the ID 3, and if I do a get all, the dog is now there. So we created with success the create logic. Let's now update a dog. An update also needs a body, so body will be what will the body be. If you think about it, you can't update everything. If you go look at the dog, it makes no sense to update the name, to update the ID, or to update the breed, because the dog will always be that breed. We need to create a DTO just for the update. Go to the DTO folder and create a new file. Let's call it update dog.dto.ts. And here, I'm just going to copy this to be faster. And it will only have the breed and the age. It can also have good boy, because a dog can start being a good boy or stop being a good boy. But everything will be optional, because a user might only want to update one of these properties. Let's now use the update dog.dto here. Update dog.dto. The first thing we need to do is get the dog index, which will come from this.dogsDB.findIndex. And we do the same thing as here. Now that we have the index, we can create our new dog. Const update the dog equals, and pay attention here, we do the same thing as we did on the create, but with what already was in the database. If a user passes an index of 1, which will actually be a number, now that I realize, an index of 1, this will put everything that's inside the index of 1 inside this constant. But then we overwrite some properties, the properties that the user sent, after it. I can copy this now and say that this is actually equal to update the dog. this object that we created is going to replace this index on the database. We can return the updated dog. The updated dog is not a string, it's a dog. And there we go. Now we can use this logic on the controller. Here on the patch, return this.dogService.update. We pass the ID and we need to pass the body. We don't have a body, so let's create it. Body, which is body of type update dogDTO. And I can pass the body here, body. And the ID, we need to do the same thing, add a plus sign and change the type to dog. Let's now test this. If I come here and do a get all, I get age 3. Let's say I want to change the age to 4. I will call the ID1, which is already here, and then pass the age with the content type and pass the age, which will be 4 now. If I do a patch, we now get that the age is 4, and if we do a get all, the age was changed. And the final one is a delete. We can delete in many ways, but I'm just going to copy this code because we already have it and do this.dogsDB.splice, and we splice it on that dog index. And there we go. We don't even need to return anything because we are saying no content on the HTTP code. So the only thing we need to change is number once again and say this returns void, which is nothing. On the controller, I will uncomment this and use it. Return this.dogService.delete and pass the ID with a plus sign once again. I'm going to test this. If I do a get all, I get the ID1 and the ID2. So let me delete the ID1. We got a 204 no content, and if I now do a get, it's not there anymore.